Right now, 8 billion people are living on this planet. Most will die having seen less than 5 of the places I'm about to show you. But here's the thing, you're not most people. And before your time runs out, these 50 destinations won't just give you memories. They'll give you proof that you actually lived. Let's go. We spend most of our lives in boxes. Boxes we call homes, boxes we call offices, boxes on wheels that take us between other boxes. And somewhere in all that routine, we forget that beyond our small radius of existence, there's a world so breathtaking, so diverse, so impossibly beautiful that it almost feels like a dream. But it's not a dream. It's real, and it's waiting. What you're about to experience is a journey across every continent, through landscapes that defy imagination, and cultures that will reshape how you see everything. Some of these places have existed for millions of years. Others are brand new. Some will make you feel insignificant in the best possible way. Others will make you feel more alive than you've ever felt. This isn't just another travel list. This is your blueprint for a life well lived. Let's begin. South America, where water becomes thunder. Our journey starts at the border between Argentina and Brazil, where nature puts on one of its most violent and beautiful shows, Iguazu Falls. Picture this, not one waterfall, but 275 separate cascades spread across nearly 2 miles of jungle-covered cliffs. The indigenous Guarani people called it Big Water, which honestly feels like an understatement when you're standing there, feeling the ground shake beneath your feet. The heart of Iguazu is a place called the Devil's Throat, a U-shaped chasm where millions of gallons of water plunge 260 feet every single second, throwing up walls of mist so thick they create permanent rainbows. When Eleanor Roosevelt stood before it, she reportedly whispered, "Poor Niagara." Most visitors fly into Buenos Aires first, then catch a domestic flight northeast to Puerto Iguazu. From there, metal walkways extend over the churning water below, and here's something the guidebooks won't tell you. Arrive at sunrise, before the crowds. That's when the first light breaks through the mist, turning the spray into liquid gold. That's when you understand why this made the list. Now, from waterfalls to ancient cities carved into mountains. The Middle East, the rose-red city. We cross continents to Jordan, to a place that spent over 1,000 years hidden in the desert. Petra. The Nabatean kingdom built this city over 2,000 years ago, carving temples, tombs, and elaborate water systems directly into rose-colored sandstone cliffs. Then, around the 4th century, Petra was abandoned. For centuries, it remained known only to local Bedouin tribes, a ghost metropolis swallowed by the desert. Today, you enter Petra the same way travelers have for millennia, through the Seek, a narrow gorge with towering walls that block out the sky. You walk through this shadowy passage for nearly a mile, and just when the anticipation becomes unbearable, the corridor opens. And there it is, the treasury. A facade over 130 feet tall, carved with impossible precision into the cliff face, glowing in the morning sun as if the rock itself is alive. But here's what most people don't know. The treasury is just the entrance. Petra sprawls across more than 100 square miles. There are hundreds of tombs, a 3,000-seat Roman theater carved into the hillside, monasteries that require climbing 800 rock-cut steps. It takes a full day just to scratch the surface. The secret? Stay for sunset. As the day trippers leave and light fades, Petra transforms. The rock changes from rose to crimson to deep purple. And in that quiet hour, you can almost hear the echo of ancient footsteps. But if carved cities impress you, wait until you see what people built into volcanic rock. Turkey, where balloons touch the sky. Cappadocia looks like it belongs on another planet. Millions of years ago, volcanic eruptions blanketed central Turkey with thick layers of ash. Over time, wind and water sculpted this into bizarre formations, towering cones, mushroom-shaped pillars, honeycombed cliffs. Early Christians fleeing persecution saw opportunity here. They carved homes, churches, and entire underground cities into the soft rock, some extending 8 stories below the surface. Today, Cappadocia is famous for hot air balloons. Every morning before dawn, dozens of colorful balloons lift off simultaneously, floating over fairy chimneys and valleys in one of the most photographed spectacles on Earth. From above, you can see the full scope of this alien landscape. But, don't just take the balloon ride and leave. Explore the underground cities. Walk through the open-air museum at Göreme, where Byzantine monks painted stunning frescoes inside rock-cut churches. Stay in a cave hotel carved into the cliffs themselves. Speaking of natural wonders that seem too perfect to be real, Central America, the land that breathes green. Costa Rica is smaller than West Virginia, yet contains nearly 6% of the world's biodiversity. This is a country where you can swim in Caribbean waters in the morning and watch the Pacific sunset in the evening, where scarlet macaws screech overhead while sloths hang motionless in trees, where active volcanoes rumble beside cloud forests older than human memory. Start in Manuel Antonio National Park, where white sand beaches meet primary rainforest. Monkeys will try to steal your lunch. Then head north to Arenal, where a perfectly conical volcano looms over hot springs. Picture this, soaking in warm mineral water while rain patters on the jungle canopy and howler monkeys announce the coming night. Here's the thing about Costa Rica. This is a country that abolished its military in 1948 and redirected that funding toward education and conservation. More than a quarter of its land is protected. The national motto is Pura Vida, pure life. And speaking of life in its most spectacular forms, East Africa, where giants walk. Tanzania is home to Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest peak at 19,341 feet. What makes it remarkable is that you don't need technical climbing skills to reach the summit. It's a trek, though the altitude is brutal. The final push happens at midnight, in sub-zero temperatures, climbing through volcanic scree. But when the sun rises and you're standing on the roof of Africa, above the clouds, with glaciers glowing gold around you, that's when you understand why people do this. Tanzania offers more than the mountain. The Serengeti, where millions of wildebeest and zebras move in endless columns. Ngorongoro Crater, a collapsed volcano functioning as natural Eden. And Zanzibar, just off the coast, an island where cultures blended over centuries, creating beaches with sand so white it hurts to look at and water in shades of turquoise that don't seem real. When you arrive, locals greet you with jambo, hello in Swahili. And if you're stressed, remember Hakuna Matata, no worries. Now, from Africa to ancient empires in Southeast Asia. Cambodia, the temple that conquered time. Angkor Wat was built in the early 12th century as a Hindu temple dedicated to Vishnu. Later on, it transformed into a Buddhist site, but its purpose stayed the same, to represent Mount Meru, the center of the universe. The scale is honestly almost incomprehensible. We're talking over 400 acres, outer walls stretching more than 3 miles. Every surface is carved with thousands of bas-reliefs depicting battles, gods, and celestial dancers. But, Angkor Wat is just one structure. The ancient Khmer Empire built hundreds of temples across this region. Taprom is where massive trees have grown through the ruins, their roots wrapping around stone doorways in this eerie, beautiful embrace. Here's what you need to know. Wake up at 4:30 in the morning, get to Angkor Wat before sunrise. Watch the sky turn from black to deep blue to burning orange as the temple's silhouette emerges. That moment, as first light catches the highest towers and the reflecting pool mirrors everything, that's worth every early morning you've ever missed. But if you want to see evolution writing its own rules, Ecuador, Darwin's laboratory. The Galapagos Islands, about 600 miles off Ecuador's coast, is where isolation created something truly extraordinary. Giant tortoises weighing over 500 pounds. Marine iguanas, the world's only sea-going lizards, diving into the ocean to graze on algae. Blue-footed boobies performing mating dances, lifting their absurdly colored feet in rituals that, honestly, look almost comedic. And then, the finches. Darwin's finches, whose varied beak shapes across different islands helped Charles Darwin formulate his theory of evolution. The Galapagos didn't just influence Darwin's thinking, it revolutionized our entire understanding of how life on Earth works. The archipelago consists of 18 main islands, each with its own ecosystem. The only way to really experience it is by boat, sailing island to island. But here's the responsibility. Visitor numbers are controlled. Paths are strictly marked. You cannot touch the wildlife, though they often approach you with curious indifference. Standing on a beach while sea lion pups play in the surf and penguins waddle past you on the equator, you realize this is what the world looked like before we changed everything. Speaking of islands that redefine paradise, Indonesia, the island of fire and grace. Bali is barely 90 miles across, but it contains multitudes. Volcanic peaks rising nearly 10,000 feet. Rice terraces carved into hillsides with geometric perfection. Hindu temples perched on cliffs above crashing waves. And everywhere, ceremony. Daily offerings of flowers, incense, and rice appear on doorsteps, in shops, and at crossroads. The culture is deeply rooted in Balinese Hinduism. Daily life revolves around ritual. Every full moon brings temple ceremonies. Every important life event is marked with elaborate rites. Visitors stay in beach towns like Canggu for surfing, Seminyak for upscale resorts, or Ubud in the interior. The cultural heart, surrounded by rice paddies and monkey forests. But what keeps people coming back isn't any single attraction. It's how the island makes you feel. There's a grace here, a gentleness in how people interact. In a world that often feels harsh and hurried, Bali moves at its own rhythm. Now, from tropical islands to coastal villages that defy gravity, Italy, 5 towns, one perfect coastline. Cinque Terre translates to 5 lands: Monterosso, Vernazza, Cornelia, Manarola, and Rio Maggiore. For centuries, these communities survived through fishing and cultivating grapes on impossibly steep terraced hillsides. Today, they're connected by train and ancient footpaths winding along cliffs. Pastel houses, pink, yellow, orange, stack up hillsides. Fishing boats bob in tiny harbors. Vines cascade down terraced slopes. The food is what you'd expect from coastal Italy, but elevated by obsessive tradition. Pesto was invented here, and eating it fresh spoils you forever. The local white wine, made from grapes dried until they're almost raisins, is unlike anything else. Here's the secret. Wake up early before day trippers arrive by train. Walk the coastal path from town to town, stopping to swim from rocky beaches. Watch sunset from Vernazza's harbor, where locals still mend fishing nets as they've done for centuries. But if you want water so clear it glows. The Maldives, where ocean becomes sky. Imagine a place where your biggest decision each day is whether to swim before or after breakfast. The Maldives consists of 26 atolls containing about 1,200 individual islands. Only 200 are inhabited. The rest exist as nature intended. The water is so clear you can see individual grains of sand 20 feet below. At night, bioluminescent plankton lights up the waves, turning the ocean into liquid stars. But there's urgency here. As the lowest lying country on Earth, average elevation just 5 feet, it's also the most vulnerable to climate change. Rising seas threaten to make this entire nation uninhabitable within this century. So, if you go with awareness. Appreciate not just the beauty, but the fragility. Understand that places like this won't be here forever, unless we collectively decide they matter enough to save. From the Indian Ocean, we cross to the Pacific. French Polynesia, the island that invented beauty. Bora Bora rises from the South Pacific like a dream made solid. Dramatic green peaks surrounded by a lagoon so blue it seems artificially colored, all enclosed by a barrier reef. What makes Bora Bora special are those overwater bungalows, invented here. Waking up in a thatched roof structure on stilts, stepping directly into bathwater warm lagoon, watching tropical fish swim below the glass floor panel. This isn't about hiking or exploring ruins. This is about slowing down to the point where you can hear your own heartbeat, about remembering what it feels like when time stops mattering. It's expensive, but there's a reason this island appears on bucket lists worldwide. Some experiences are worth saving for. Now, from islands to mountains that pierce the clouds. Peru, where ancient meets impossible. This country contains such diverse geography, it almost seems impossible, honestly. The Atacama Desert in the north, it's one of the driest places on Earth. Then, the Amazon rainforest sprawls out in the east. And, running like a spine down the western edge, are the Andes Mountains. This is where you'll find Machu Picchu, perched on a mountain ridge 8,000 feet above sea level. There are over 200 stone structures built without mortar. Stones so precisely cut they fit together like puzzle pieces. How the Inca managed to transport these massive blocks up the mountain remains, well, partially mysterious. But Peru offers even more. There's Lake Titicaca, the world's highest navigable lake, where the Uros people live on floating islands made entirely of reeds. Lima, the coastal capital, has become one of the world's great food cities. And the Amazon basin covers over half the country. This is where ancient and modern coexist, often a bit uncomfortably, but always in fascinating ways. Speaking of diversity, the Philippines, 7,000 reasons to smile. There are over 7,000 islands scattered across the sea, over 109 million people, more than 180 languages. The numbers alone are honestly staggering. Most flights arrive in Manila, but that's really just the starting point. From there, you can explore Palawan, often called the Philippines' last frontier, where El Nido offers limestone cliffs rising from turquoise water. Or you might visit Boracay, with its powdery white sand and nightlife that runs until dawn. Or Bohol, home to the famous Chocolate Hills. Filipinos are renowned for their hospitality, warm, friendly, genuinely happy to share their country. The culture blends indigenous traditions with Spanish colonial influence and American pop culture, creating something that's entirely unique. The Philippines was called one of the premier travel destinations of the 21st century for good reason. You could spend months here and still have more to discover. But for monuments to love? India, the monument to eternal devotion. The Taj Mahal in Agra is so much more than just beautiful architecture. Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan commissioned this mausoleum back in 1632, following the death of his beloved wife, Mumtaz Mahal. Construction took over 20 years. The entire structure is faced with white marble that seems to change color throughout the day. Pink at dawn, brilliant white at midday, golden at sunset, and ghostly silver under moonlight. The dome rises 240 feet. The 4 minarets lean just slightly outward, so if there's ever an earthquake, they'll fall away from the tomb rather than into it. Every surface is decorated with inlaid semi-precious stones forming floral patterns or intricate calligraphy from the Quran. But here's what often goes unsaid. The Taj Mahal is a tomb. Shah Jahan built it to house his wife's remains, and his own body lies beside hers now. For all its beauty, it's fundamentally a monument to grief. An emperor who loved so deeply that when death took his wife, he spent 2 decades creating something worthy of her memory. That's what makes it transcendent. Now, to the highest point on Earth. Nepal, the roof of the world. Mount Everest, at 29,032 feet. It's honestly the ultimate challenge. The summit sits in the death zone, where air contains only a third of the oxygen available at sea level. Your brain starts dying slowly. Every step requires superhuman willpower. Since Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay first reached the summit in 1953, over 6,000 people have successfully climbed Everest. But you know, more than 300 have died trying. You don't have to climb it to experience its majesty, though. Trekking to base camp is an adventure. 2 weeks walking through Sherpa villages, crossing suspension bridges, watching the mountain grow larger each day. When you finally see the peak, ice and rocks soaring into the sky, prayer flags snapping in thin air, you understand why people call this place sacred. From the world's highest peaks to one of its most vibrant cities. Brazil, the city that never stops dancing. Rio de Janeiro is a city of contradictions. Fabulous wealth and desperate poverty side by side. World-famous beaches shadowed by favelas on hillsides. Deep Catholic faith coexisting with the hedonistic abandon of Carnival. The beaches are legendary. Copacabana and Ipanema, names synonymous with sun and beautiful people. Christ the Redeemer stands atop Corcovado Mountain, watching over everything. Sugarloaf Mountain offers 360-degree views via cable car. But Rio is most famous for Carnival, the massive pre-Lenten celebration every February or March. Samba schools compete in elaborate parades. Street parties fill neighborhoods. For one wild week, the entire city becomes a party. Even outside carnival season, Rio pulses with energy. The beaches fill every weekend. Bossa Nova drifts from bars. This is the kind of city that gets under your skin. But for cities that float. Italy, the impossible city. Venice, built on 118 small islands connected by over 400 bridges, is a medieval city preserved in amber. No cars, only narrow pedestrian walkways and waterways. The city rose to power in the Middle Ages, controlling trade routes between Europe and Asia. The wealth that flowed through Venice is still visible in ornate palaces lining the Grand Canal, in golden mosaics of St. Mark's Basilica. Gondolas still ply the canals, their gondoliers singing as they pole through narrow waterways. It's touristy, yes, it's also magical. But Venice is in trouble. The city is sinking. Flooding is becoming more severe. Mass tourism has driven out local residents. The population has dropped from 175,000 in the 1950s to under 50,000 today. If you go respectfully. Get lost in back alleys away from St. Mark's Square. Support artisans still making Murano glass by hand. Venice is a treasure, but treasures are fragile. Now, to wilderness that feels wild. Canada, where mountains meet sky. Banff sits in the heart of Canada's oldest national park. Mountain peaks rise directly from the valley floor. Glaciers feed turquoise lakes, and honestly, their colors seem almost too vivid to be natural. The blue-green hue comes from glacial flour. That's rock ground to a fine powder, suspended in the water, reflecting light in specific wavelengths. Lake Louise might just be the most photographed lake in Canada, but Moraine Lake, well, it rivals it for sheer perfection. In winter, Banff transforms into a ski destination. And in summer, hiking trails lead through flower-filled meadows and past waterfalls. Wildlife is everywhere. Elk graze along the Bow River. Bears roam the forests. Mountain goats navigate cliffs that look, frankly, impossible. This is wilderness allowed to be itself, rather than tamed for human convenience. Not far away lies another natural wonder. The border that thunders. Niagara Falls isn't the tallest waterfall in the world. But you know, it just might be the most powerful, with over 750,000 gallons of water per second crashing over the edge during peak flow. The roar is constant, overwhelming. Mist rises hundreds of feet, creating these perpetual rainbows. The sheer volume is, honestly, hypnotic. The Canadian side offers the best views. You can take the journey behind the falls, descending into tunnels to observation portals directly behind the water curtain. Or ride the Hornblower cruise right into the spray zone, where, despite the raincoat, you get absolutely soaked. Stand at the edge, feel the ground shake. Watch millions of gallons disappear into mist and thunder. Nature doesn't care about your Instagram, it just is. From waterfalls to roads that never end. Hawaii, the road to paradise. The road to Hana on Maui. Well, it's 52 miles of highway winding along cliffs, twisting through rainforest so dense the canopy pretty much blocks out the sky. Over 600 curves. 59 bridges, most of them just one lane. But honestly, it's not really about the destination. It's about what you discover along the way. Roadside fruit stands selling banana bread. Waterfalls where you can swim in crystal-clear pools, and black sand beaches where lava met the ocean and shattered into ebony gravel. The drive can take all day if you actually stop at everything that's worth seeing. Most people, though, they don't. They rush through and miss the point entirely. This is Hawaii before the resorts. The island as it was, lush, wild, shaped by water and time, not by human plans. And here's the secret. Start early. Beat the rental car convoys. Have the waterfalls to yourself. Now, let's head to the edge of the world. Patagonia, where the earth still roars. Patagonia isn't just a specific place. It's this vast region at the bottom of South America, split between Chile and Argentina. It's a land of extremes. Glaciers calving icebergs the size of buildings, mountains so jagged they look like teeth, and winds so strong they can literally knock you over. Torres del Paine National Park in Chile is the crown jewel. Granite peaks rising from pampas, turquoise lakes fed by glacial melt, guanacos grazing in herds. On the Argentine side, the Perito Moreno Glacier is one of the few in the world still advancing. You can actually watch house-sized chunks of ice crash into the water with sounds like thunder. Patagonia rewards the intrepid. It's not easy to reach, not cheap, and definitely not always comfortable. But it's one of the last places that still feels, well, untamed. Speaking of ancient and untamed, Australia, the heart of stone. Uluru rises 1,142 feet from the flat desert floor in Australia's red center. But, believe it or not, at least another mile of the formation extends below ground. The rock changes color throughout the day. Rust red at dawn, burning orange at noon, deep crimson at sunset. Aboriginal people have known this rock for 60,000 years. Their creation stories are written in its caves, painted right on its walls. In 2019, climbing Uluru was finally banned, a recognition that this is a sacred site, not just a tourist attraction to be conquered. Come here for sunset. Watch the rock glow like a coal pulled from fire. Watch the stars emerge. So many stars, the Milky Way a river of light across the sky. This is ancient Australia, the land before, during, and beyond human presence. But for mountains, Europeans turned into icons. Switzerland, where mountains became destinations. The Swiss Alps feature some of the world's most iconic mountains. The Matterhorn, that perfect triangular peak, rises 14,692 feet, its shape recognizable pretty much anywhere. The best way to see the Alps is by train. The Glacier Express takes 8 hours from Zermatt to St. Moritz, passing through tunnels, over viaducts, and right alongside glaciers. These aren't just transportation, they're experiences, with panoramic windows and routes engineered to really showcase the landscape. In winter, the Alps become a skier's paradise. In summer, hiking trails wind through alpine meadows. There's mountain biking, and even paragliding from peaks. Switzerland isn't cheap, that's for sure. But for many travelers, the Alps truly justify the cost. This is where mountains became more than obstacles. They became destinations.